Show onboard computer synchronization.
Now entering the nexus of geekery and guy world. In 3, 2, 1, mark.
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
This is the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. Presented by IJMBooks.com.
Hey, boys and girls, welcome back for another exciting edition of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. I am your host, as always, Ian J. Malone. We thank you for joining us tonight. Going to be a jam-packed show, people. I mean, this is what we call a biggin' down in Southland. Thanks, as always, to our presenting sponsors, IJMBooks.com, for putting on this little program. IJMBooks.com, character charged sci-fi stories with a shot of rock and roll. We will get to my partners in crime here at the back half of the show, but we've been teasing a big special guest interview for about a week or so now. And tonight is the night we finally get to that. I've kind of hinted around that this comes from the world of NASCAR racing, which, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of. So that's going to be coming up. After that, like I said, I'll bring in Dave and Scott. We'll break down kind of the big geek news of the week, which is without a doubt, hands down, the Season 2 premiere of The Mandalorian. After that, we've got listener questions from you guys on everything from the National Football League, college football, and even a little bit of seasonal beer talk. So stick around for that here after our interview. As always, you know where you can find information about the show. You can hit us up online at dudesandhyperspace.com. We also do the social media thing at the Hyperdudes on Twitter, and then you can find our Facebook group by searching for the Dudes and Hyperspace podcast on the old Facebook machine. So, without further ado, let's get to that big guest interview we talked about. I don't want to waste any more of his time than I have to because it's just awesome that he came on here to talk to us. He is none other than driver of the Go Fast Ford Mustang, number 32 in your programs, but number 1 in your hearts, Mr. Corey Lajoie. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
No problem. Well, before we jump into the questions I've got for you, I want to kind of give our listeners a little bit of backstory on how this came to be. You host one of the top podcasts in NASCAR called Sunday Money off of the Motor Racing Network. And I was listening a couple of weeks ago, and somehow you and your co-host got into the subject of states where the series goes. And you made an off-cuff comment, man, about my home state of Florida. Said that it sucks. All our houses look the same. People are stupid. You didn't say people are stupid. I'm just ad-libbing that. Well, you had a bunch of hate for my state, man. Well, I'm from Tallahassee. My co-host Scott's from St. Petersburg, and my other co-host Davis from Miami. So between the three of us, we pretty well got the state covered from north to south. So I'm going to lead this interview, man, with a question that's on everybody's mind. What's up with the hate for my state, man?
I don't know what it is, man. I don't know if it's the pastel colors that all those houses are painted in, or the stucco, or the single story screened in pools every single one of you guys have. I don't know, man. It just gives me anxiety as soon as I cross from Georgia into Florida every time.
See, man, I just don't get that. You're talking a lot about South Florida with that, but if you come up to God's country in North Florida, which I would expect you know well, you race in the Snowball Derby in Pensacola, right?
Well, I didn't say Pensacola's a heck of a lot better either. That's still in the state of Florida. Now Five Flag Speedway, I would consider that a crown jewel, but the surrounding areas, it still is Florida. It smells weird. It's musty. There's salt in the air. I mean, I don't know what to think when I go to Florida. I just can't wait till I get out of Florida. But when I'm down there for 2 weeks and at Daytona, getting ready for the 500, there's on the other side of that coin, there's also no other place I'd rather be.
Sure. Well, you know what? If you ever decide you want to take a trip down to God's country, like I said, that's Tallahassee. That's heading on up the Emerald Coast, do a little time in Panama City, catch you a little time in Destin, and then we can end the tour back in Pensacola and show you what Escambia County is really like. You just let me know.
That sounds like my idea of a terrible vacation. That you might as well throw the in-laws in it for just old time's sake too, just really add insult to injury for that sort of trip.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we like to call sarcasm on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast, just in case you had not picked up on that. But all righty, well, enough of that. I gave you plenty of space there to save face with Florida Nation. If you don't want to take it, that's fine, man. No, I don't think you did at all.
No, I mean you try Florida. what it is, man. I just when you talk about God's country, I can look out my window right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'll tell you where God's country is.
All righty. Well, enough's enough on that. We'll get on into the guts of what we're here to talk about, which is racing. And you're rolling that particular slice of the world. Listen, man, I mean, you're a third-generation race car driver, all right? Your grandfather, Don's in the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame. Your dad, Randy, I remember watching him back in the 90s, his two-time Xfinity Series, then called the Busch Series champion. He is also in the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame. So, I mean, there's no wondering how it is you came to be exposed to the sport of stock car racing. But what I want to know is, when did the light go off for you and you said, this is what I want to do? Not because it's what my family does. It's not because of my last name. I want to strap on a helmet and I want to get out there and show people what I've got to offer this industry. When did that happen and what did that look like?
That's a good question, because naturally I was, my grandpa did it, my dad did it, so that's just the way it works is you as soon as you can reach the pedals, you start doing it. So there's a picture hanging around here somewhere. I was 3 years old with a helmet on in a go-kart out here behind the shop. But the time that was really the story that sticks out of the watershed moment where I actually chose to dive in with both feet, I was 16 or 17, I think I was 17. My buddy and I from high school built the late model all year, or all off season, right? We started in November. It was the first brand new car I ever had, and we built this thing. Low, light, and left is the trademark kind of saying of when you're trying to build a NASCAR, because you want everything low to keep the center of mass down, everything to the left as much as you can get it, just to make that thing go around in a circle. So we built this sweet late model. We took it to Rockingham Speedway to shake it down for a test session before we went there to race. And Rockingham's an old wore-out mile track where it's really fast. So
Sure.
We made the initial run. Thing was dialed in. I was only going probably 75% just to kind of work the bugs out of it. Well, I go into the first corner, the second run out, and I kept my foot buried into the throttle, and the brand new hubs that we put on there, well, they had a recall on them after this. All 5 ears that were holding the wheel on broke off, and we ended up destroying that car after about 12 laps. So, I mean, it was so wrecked that we had to borrow the rollback from Rockingham Speedway to throw it up on to bring it back to the shop. That's how bad it was. So,
wow.
So then there was a guy there testing with us as well. His name was Eddie Sharp. He owned some market cars back in the day. He had the sister chassis to that car that he was trying to get it ready, but wasn't very high on the priority list. And he called Dad a couple days later, and he saw we crashed, and he threw the offer out there that was, hey, if your kid wants to come up here and work on this car, and I'll get the parts and pieces, and if he wants to get it ready for the race, you guys can just take it and run it. So I was still in high school. I had enough credits to do half days at that point in time. So I would leave high school, whatever it was, before lunch, and it was about a 45-minute drive one way to that guy's shop over in Denver, North Carolina. So I'd drive over there. I drove over there, not even convinced I was going to build that car, just because it was only maybe 14, 17 days before the race, somewhere in there. So I would go over there, and this thing was bare bones, nothing but an unpainted chassis with a bunch of bolts sitting in a bin, right? And I knew that it just took me and my buddy about 4 months to build our car. We were going to try to turn this car around in 14 days. So I'm like, all right, Eddie, I appreciate the offer. I'll talk to you. I'll call you tomorrow or something, see if we can do it. And he's, oh, no worries, man. If you want to do it, great. Not, whatever. So I drove home that night and got home about 8 o'clock or so. And Dad was sitting on the couch, and he was just sitting there thumbing through on his remote control and didn't even look over. He was like, what did Eddie have to say? I said, there is zero chance we can get that thing done. I mean, zero, Being a 17-year-old kid, you thought that you had it all figured out. Well, he didn't even, like I said, he didn't even bat an eye. He didn't even turn around and look at me, nothing. He just said, we'll do not. And it was that moment. I was like, okay, well, come hell or high water, I'm gonna go over there every day and try to finish this car. So wake up in the morning, go to school, drive over to Eddie Sharp's shop, work until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Drive back, sleep, shower, go back, do it all over again. I did that for 2 weeks straight. We got this car built, and we took it to the racetrack. We qualified third, and we ended up winning the race.
Nice.
So that was also like my first win in like a big car. I did like the 3/4 scale stuff, and I hadn't had a whole lot of experience in a big car to that point in time, and that was a pretty big moment in my career where it kind of proved to a lot of people what I was capable of doing, as well as myself. And then at that point in time, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing, how to work on them. I also know what I'm doing behind the wheel. And ever since then, it wasn't smooth sailing by no means, but at that point in time, I knew what I was wanting to do for a career, and certainly had a lot of bumps and bruises and battles along the way, but still fighting.
Sure. Well, kind of moving forward from there, the trajectory of your career is pretty recognizable to those who follow racing. You came up through the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East Division. Were pretty well decorated there with 6 wins. Then you made the jump up to ARCA and managed to nab 3 wins there. A lot of success going on for a very young Corey Lajoie at that point. Talk to me about that stage of your career. It seems like you were riding pretty high on the hog.
Well, I mean, when you're a 17, 18-year-old kid in the ESPN Next magazine with Kyrie Irving on the cover, you thought you're somebody, right? And
there you go.
that was up against, at that point in time, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and a lot of guys, and Ryan McGee, who was in charge of picking who he thought was going to be the next guy. He, for whatever reason, picked me, and I'm still trying to prove him right. I made it a lot further than I thought I was going to, but at that point in time, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was just jumping race cars, running pretty good and winning some races. And Kyle Larson and I went toe to toe down to the wire for that K&N Pro Series championship. And there was that. And then when it turned the corner for me to start racing in the national series, whether that be the trucks or Xfinity, I didn't have the sponsorship money or the opportunities really to get in something I was afforded the time to learn, or even the speed of a car to figure out what was good or what was bad. So I'd floundered around a little bit. I had a couple part-time opportunities and couldn't really get any traction. That's when I started overdriving the cars a bit, trying to do a little bit more than what they were capable of doing, and get myself in some bad spots. And then ended up, all the driving opportunities kind of dried up in 2014-15, and I resorted just going back to what I knew was working on cars and crew chiefing some different guys, and kept the relationship with some of the people within the industry and outside the industry with some of the sponsors that I was trying to cultivate. And there was a company called U Theory that continued to follow me on social media and kind of keep an eye on me even while I wasn't driving, and they were impressed with how I kind of handled myself, publicly, as well as the relationships that I had privately. And they ended up giving me a little bit of money and sponsorship to get back into the fold, to start being part-time in the Xfinity Series. And then had a couple good runs, convinced Ron Devine over at BK Racing. Actually, Jimmy Johnson technically convinced Ron Devine to put me in his race car at that point in time. So he actually made a call on the ski slope when he was I was in the middle of trying to get this deal done, and I was an unproven nobody with no stats behind my name whatsoever beyond just a women of prayer, right? And Jimmy has kind of watched me my whole career up to that point, and knew what I could do in an ARCA car, knew what I could do in any car that they give me the opportunity to run well or show what I can do. And he called him up literally on a ski lift in Aspen and talked to Ron for 20-30 minutes and put in a good rapport. And Ron chose me over the couple guys that he had on his list. And I kind of learned my bumps and bruises and rookie mistakes in that deal, and continue to just roll the snowball down the hill. And it certainly wasn't rolling fast by no means. It was just trying to get to each and every race. That team ended up disbanding and all that. So I was in the middle of some stuff that was tough to weather, but man, it's been a ton of lessons learned. I've learned a lot on the racetrack, learned a lot how to deal with people off the racetrack, and I'm in a really good spot with how I've been able to overcome a lot of the adversity that's been put in front of me with this deal. And I do think that eventually it's going to pay off when I'm with a team that kind of give me the tools to work with on the racetrack. Then we can continue to really build them and grow upon them off the racetrack.
Sure. And we're actually going to get to that here in just a little bit. But I want to kind of stay with, with this stretch where you're talking about the National Touring Series and just trying to get by with what you can on a couple of part-time jobs here and there, racing for different teams. I've heard you say on Sunday Money that you're actually quite a big proponent of guys being able to get to Cup and take their lumps, even if it's even if it's in less than desirable equipment. That, when given the choice of being, elite in the truck series versus taking your lumps in Cup, there is something to be said for going ahead and taking your lump in Cups, because it's such a quantum leap forward in terms of the competition that you face. Even if you're just shredding the field in a KBM truck, you can't fathom what it's like to race the 39 other guys that compete week in and week out at the Cup Series level. So, talk a little bit about that, and what is it like, the plight of a guy who is really just trying to make do with what he has and be smart with the equipment that's under him?
Well, it's all situational, right? And everybody, no matter what stage you're in your life, will be better. And then your hand of cards will be better than a lot of other people's hands of cards. And it's a matter of how you play. Doesn't matter what the next guy's holding. As long as you play your cards how you're the best you can play them, that's how long you can stay in the game, right? So you get these guys who may, let's just say, have a exceptional amount of talent, but a limited amount of resources or money to bring. Those guys could go to, I don't even want to throw out a team as a negative example, but they can go do an elite Xfinity program, right? Let's just say hypothetically that person's dad can spend $300,000 or $400,000, maybe a little bit more, 1 or 2 years. Well, they do a part-time schedule somewhere, and they don't get the recognition. They don't have the good runs that they need to be able to stick around or get the attention of another team owner. Those guys, once dad's pockets or sponsor's pocket dries up, those guys are done. Where they might have had the ability to make a career in the sport, they didn't time it, or they didn't play their hand of cards right. And I've had a lot of people around me to counsel and just to bounce some ideas off of. And the way I did it was probably going against some of their opinions, just because I had a very limited amount of sponsorship. So I needed to figure out how to gain as much experience as I could with that limited amount of money. So I chose to go to a lesser caliber Xfinity team to, instead of bringing $500,000 to Joe Gibbs and racing 3 races and pushing all my chips into the pot, I elected for 15 races at a 15th place team to learn, just learn the nuances, learn where pit road is, just learn how to race, learn how to move around.
Sure.
And then over those 15 or so races, that allowed me to build relationships at the racetrack that ultimately got me into my first Cup experience. So a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people come in and they think they need to be sitting in the best seats right from the get-go. And you can point to a guy like Eric Jones, who had a ton of success in the truck series, had a ton of success in the Xfinity series. Then he goes to the Cup deal, and everybody else is just as capable of a driver as he is, and he can't figure out how to get that extra little bit consistently compared to his teammates or some of the other guys that are racing around, right? Because his teammate wins 6-7 races and he misses the playoffs. Not a good look. So I think there is something to be it's hard to see. When you watch a race any given Sunday, it's easy to think that, when Corey Lajoie is running 22nd to 25th, that he's the 22nd, 25th place race car driver. Well, you're not graded on the curve that you need to be graded on, because the disparity in the equipment is huge.
Sure.
But that story is hard to be told on the broadcast, and that's why I enjoy doing the podcast so much, is just because I can explain, the shortcomings that we have, the limited budgets, the resources, then, the lack of wind tunnel time, and the lesser engine program that we can afford, and the older cars that we're racing, like all that stuff is adding up to me learning how to, I guess, make chicken salad. So as soon as I get the ingredients to make a really good chicken salad, I feel like I'm going to be that much further ahead than somebody who had all the tools growing up and kind of got accustomed to it and then didn't.
Well, I mean, I think that the mark of a good race car driver, when you really boil it all down, is somebody who gets the max results out of what they have to work with. So, what makes Kevin Harvick elite, most weekends anyway, not including Martinsville last weekend, is that he can take a 12th place car and put it in the top 5, which with 20 laps to go puts him squarely in position to go win a race. The same thing can be said for a guy who routinely takes a car that, let's have no illusions, this 30th place car, 33rd place car, but when he routinely finishes 22nd, 23rd, 21st, maybe even 14th, 15th, that's a guy who's getting max results out of what he has to work with. So it's all relative in that regard. Right. Moving forward to Go Fast. You've been with them now 2 years. That's been your first full-time Cup ride. That's going to come to an end this off season when you've announced you're going to move forward to a different team. But you've definitely had a couple of highs at Go Fast. In addition to to getting the full-time butt time, seat time like you talked about, you've also seen some results on the track. You've got top 10s at Daytona, Talladega. You were also in the news in the telecast this past weekend in Martinsville. A little pit strategy got you up front. Even prior to that, you had some time there running in the teens that got you some screen time during the broadcast. So there have definitely been some highs with you in the 32. Talk about what that experience has been like.
Yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun to run with those guys, and they've given me my best opportunity to race in the Cup Series to date. So, we. No different than any other small team, right? We have a limited budget. We have considerably less amount of people that are working on our cars, and our cars aren't the newest thing, and we don't have the best motors and all the stuff that you can point to as to why we can't compete for wins. But on the other side of that, that's where the stacking pennies moniker comes from. Is just we got to look for the small victories that may not get a lot of notoriety on Twitter or social media or even on the broadcast, but when we know that we beat 3 or 4 guys that we shouldn't have, or when we have a really good rolling speed or a couple good pit stops, like those are wins, and that's where you got to find your satisfaction from, because it's easy to get burned out. So it's been a lot of fun. We've had some killer runs. We ran a couple top 10s at the speedways. Been in contention late for most of those until some sort of speedway crash gets us. If not, then we're usually pretty close to the front. We've had some good runs on the short tracks, but it's just such an uphill climb when you're racing, not just one Goliath, you're racing against 25 Goliaths every week that, have all the tools and more so than what we're working with. So, but I've been, some weeks I've been happier than others. We've, fought some mechanical issues that have plagued us, but overall speaking, it's been a killer learning experience for me. It's been a great opportunity for me to show a little bit of what I'm capable to do behind the race car for the future, and it's allowed me to stick around in the garage for a couple more years to come here. So I definitely appreciate Archie and Mason and all the guys that that put me in the race car the last 2 years, and wish those guys well. Those guys sold their charter, and Go Fast won't necessarily look the same way it does next year as it does this year, and they're going to be doing some part-time stuff, but it's worked out for both of us. I feel like on my end, my partners like Schluter Systems and Dryden and Built Bar have been able to been to go fast and really grow and really see a good ROI, just because the budget that Go Fast has, it allows the partners to see a positive ROI. So it's put me in a pretty good position to move forward, continue to grow my partners at the next level with some faster race cars, and continue ultimately to get to where I want to be, hopefully.
Sure. Well, you can't, unfortunately, talk about Go Fast without talking about something that happened to you earlier on this year. And, folks at home, you're quickly getting the one of the themes that you're seeing come out of this conversation is the notion of sponsorship, and how sponsorship dollars really drive the train behind what a race team is or is not on the track. You're cruising through the summer, you're having a great time, you get called into the office about middle of summer, and you're told that a Donald Trump super PAC is signed on for a 9-race deal to sponsor your car, and now all of a sudden you are squarely in the middle of American politics and the vitriol that is American politics. Something else listeners have got to know: unless your name is Earnhardt, you have no say in that. All right. When you sign on to race for a team and they come to you and say, we've found people to give us money to keep us on the track, we've got to take it. You nailed it with your analogy on Sunday Money when you said sometimes you've just got to wear the chicken suit, and it doesn't matter whether you like the sponsor or you not. That's now your job, and you've got to represent that interest. You got brutalized on social media for that. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I did feel like it was fair to kind of give you the floor to talk about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah. And you pretty much summed it up well, where, I sign a contract with the team as, to offer my driving services, if you will, and as well as my social media assets, and just to be a representative of the race team, including the partners that they bring on or already have, in addition to the partners I have. So being that I'm an employee of the team, it's no different than, an employee working anywhere else. I'm not in charge of how they handle business, how they sell their inventory of races, being that they own the real estate of the race car. If you think about a race car as a billboard, right? I'm not in charge of telling them what they can and can't put on their billboard. So, the timing of it was certainly tough to weather. There was a couple partners that I was pretty well far down the path of, doing something for possibly the end of 20. And some stuff in 21 with it, didn't want to be involved in a politicized position, or be involved with, somebody that by media standards openly supported Trump. So I lost out on a couple opportunities there, which were tough. But, generally speaking, it's like you said, it's pretty vitriol right now with just the way social media is, the way just the media as a whole is right now. So it certainly wasn't timed right to make it an easy storm to weather. But it's over with now. I mean, coincidentally, we're talking on November 3rd. So regardless of the outcome, there's going to be a lot of people pissed off one way or the other.
Isn't it so? Isn't that the case?
So I'm. And I've learned a lot through the process. It didn't make my job of being a race car driver any easier whatsoever. But on the flip side of that, the team got a pretty healthy deal in terms of selling those races to that particular pack, and then they ended up selling the team shortly thereafter that. So it is one of those things, and I can guarantee you going forward that there's a stipulation in any contracts that I will be signing about first right of refusal in terms of any particular political or religious things that may or may not be on the car.
Sure. Well, pivoting away from that rather sour topic, because like I said, I did want to give you an opportunity to cover that. Let's talk about something that's a whole heck of a lot more fun and frankly a whole lot more rewarding, and that's your charitable work. Listen, every race car driver under the sun, and really most professional athlete for that matter, has some sort of a foundation or a charitable cause that they've aligned themselves with, and that's great. I mean, there's no denying that when you're raising money for charity, that's helping people, and in no way is that a bad thing. Some people, you can tell, for all intents and purposes, that's a PR rep whispering in their ear that, all right, this is part of your model. You got to have some sort of a philanthropic end here, and this is what we're going to do, so let's rock and roll. You are not that guy. All right. Somewhere along the line, 2018 or so, and you can nail down the timeline, you got involved with an organization called Samaritan's Feet. And before I take this any further, folks, you got to know that for people who are on social media for business purposes, all right, in Corey's case, he's a race car driver. He's there to interact with his fans via social media. That's the front line of how he does that. In my case, I'm a sci-fi author. That's where I interact with readers. And the hope is that maybe they like me, talk to me, want to go buy books, and, we all make a better living for ourselves. In social media land, that starts with your profile. And that starts with your website on your profile. That is the gateway through which people follow you from social media to find your stuff. You don't you don't list your website on your social media profiles. You use what is prime marketing real estate to support and show your support for Samaritan's Feet. So, and I tip my cap to you for that, because that is truly putting your money where your mouth is. But talk about how you got involved with them and what it is that they do.
Yeah, so Samaritan's Feet is my idea of, if I were to start a charity, that it would be exactly what they do. It's a Christian-based organization who provides shoes for people who need them domestically as well as internationally, mostly internationally, and they get close to donating 800,000 to 1 million pairs of shoes a year. So back up a little bit. My wife and I in 2018 went on a missions trip to Haiti, and we were out there for, 14, 16 days, and it was just this reoccurring theme of 98% of these kids didn't have shoes. And I just thought that that's just like a common thing, is like everybody's like, you should have shoes, right? I mean, that's just like
sure.
And for us in America, it's a fashion item more so than it is a means of health, where, you start digging in that a little bit more. There's no plumbing in a third world country, right? There's no trash service. So if there's any sort of wetness on the ground, it's not spilt water or coffee. It's usually feces. So the leading source of death in the world isn't AIDS, it's foodborne illnesses. Just from people walking around in trash and in waste, and a little tiny cut in their foot ends up making their blood septic, and anywhere from little kids to older people, just because they don't have adequate footwear. So when I got back, I just had this conviction of, my racing nickname is Super Shoe, because if you're a good wide receiver in football, they'll call you Hot Hands or something. Well, for whatever reason, when I was a little kid, one of my dad's buddies just started calling me Super Shoe, and I was winning races and all that, so it kind of stuck. So I wanted to do something with shoes because it's a natural fit, right? Well, I got back and I was starting to look, and I was going to do like just a small collection-based deal and distribute with, local church or whatever it was. Well, a buddy of mine introduced me to Manny Ohome from Samaritan's Feet, and what turned into from a 20-minute introductory meeting turned into a 4-hour just sitting here trying to brainstorm. Like, it's just one of those deals where you get somebody and they get you, and that's what happened with me and Manny, and he's one of my best friends to date. So we decided to partner up. I was going to use my platform and my assets and resources to raise awareness for his cause, because it's right on line with what I envisioned. Any sort of Corey Lajoie Super Shoe charity look like. Well, Samaritan's Feet already done it. And coincidentally, it was 15 minutes down the road in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it made it even way easier.
Sure.
So fast forward a couple weeks, we were looking for a sponsor for our Watkins Glen car. I had this dream of this Samaritan's Feet car. I had the feet on the hood, Samaritan's Feet on the quarters. And I was like, well, okay, how the heck are you going to pay for it? Because that's a lot of money. Sitting there laying in bed trying to think through who I could sell it to, and who wouldn't mind giving up the real estate and putting that on the race car. And I just had this feeling in my gut, like, all right, call Archie and see if he won't pay you your salary for a month if he could put Samaritan's Feet in the car. And I was like, oh, that's a bad idea, but that's what I feel like I should do. So I called Archie at 11:30 at night. He answered, and he was like, are you drunk? Are you sure? I'm like, I don't know why. I don't think, I just feel like this is kind of on my heart here, and it's kind of what I want to do. So he was like, are you sure? I'm like, well, as of right now, yes. So let's hang up before I change my mind. So we ended up locking that in. Obviously, what I get paid enough a month isn't what it takes to go, race a cup race. Well, he took a little bit of a haircut as well, and we both made it happen. And we just started planning around this particular race. And my wife had the idea of anybody who donated to, our fundraiser page on Samaritan's Feet, whether it was $1 or $1,000, we would write your name on the car. And I thought that it was going to raise a couple bucks, but next thing I know, they started pouring in, media started picking it up, and Sunday morning before the race, there was 1,735 names on the car, and we raised over $135,000. So that was certainly an eye-opening experience, and raised a ton of money, ton of shoes, and we did a lot of work with some elementary schools in the area, and something that really, really hits home and really makes positive change at the grassroots level. And I'm not doing it for the notoriety, for the social media retweets. I really do it just because I feel like I've been blessed with a lot in terms of resources and just a platform to impact lives for the better. And I just don't want to squander that. And Samaritan's Feet's a great blueprint for me just to plug into, and they have organization, which I don't. And we really can. We've been doing a lot of cool things here lately.
Awesome. Yeah, anybody, I don't care whether you're a person of faith or not, if you want to have your eyes opened and your worldview completely set on its ear, take a mission trip somewhere and just see how people around the world live. That will change some stuff for you real quick in a hurry. I guarantee
you people wouldn't be complaining on how bad our country sucks if they loaded up on a plane and went to Haiti for a week or two and spent a couple days living in a third world country. They'd come back and be pretty grateful for how good our country is and the assets that we have to work with. So I think that it should be a prerequisite if you're a middle school or a high schooler to figure out how to raise some money, whether it be bake sale or whatever it is. Like, it needs to be like you got to raise some money. Yep. And it's a school field trip to go see what and just go volunteer to help the people who don't have the means or the resources to even get out of a particular situation they're in, because the government's run a certain way or just the poverty's overwhelming. They can't break that cycle. So people that are on social media talking about how bad they hate it here, load up on a plane and go tell me how that is over there, how much you'd like to go live over there, then get back to me. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you on that. Well, this is kind of the last question I had for you before I get into what I want to close this interview out with, which is a little game we play here on the show from time to time called 2-Minute Drill. But there are a lot of people listening to this podcast and we talked about this off air before we got on here. You're the first race car driver they've ever been exposed to. And believe it or not, there's still a huge swath of the population out there that thinks NASCAR drivers, a bunch of rednecks driving around 180 miles an hour on a Sunday afternoon in a nice Ford Mustang, air conditioning, kick it, dig at the radio a little bit, maybe drink you a latte while you're on the track. They genuinely think that's how you guys live every Sunday. Please dispel those myths for me by explaining to them what it is you go through on a given Sunday, but particularly in the summer months when it's, almost 150, 160 degrees in the car and you're wearing a fire suit in Dallas or wherever. Well, yeah, and there's certainly a lot of elements to go along with it, but I think for the people who might have a certain idea of what they think NASCAR is, when just after watching Talladega Nights a couple times and laughing along with Will Ferrell, I would recommend those people go to an actual race in the middle of summer and just sit out there and watch how fast the cars are going and then just watch some video and watch some in-car cameras and see that we're pulling, 2.5 G's in the corner, a place like Bristol, and the interior cockpit's over 140 degrees, and it's a literal sauna for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So, it's not a walk in the park by no means, and you're on, there's certain places that are a little bit more physical physically taxing and mentally taxing than others, but speed, you're burning somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 calories in a 3 to 4 hour window, and your heart rate's on average of 155 to 165 for that course of time. So, it's a physical toll just from the amount of concentration you have to apply, and just the overall heat of what the cars are putting out with the exhaust and just the oil tank that's mounted right behind the driver's seat. So it's not a riding your grandmother's Lincoln back and forth to church. It's it's a pretty grueling thing, because a lot of the times if there's a hose or if there's a certain change that NASCAR wants to make to cool the drivers down or help dissipate some heat, then either weighs more or it's not as good for aero. So the teams are always trying to figure out how to make the cars make as much downforce as possible, and how to seal them up as much as possible to make downforce. And pretty much, if it makes a car go fast, it makes the driver hotter. So that's the balance that NASCAR and the teams are fighting, just to try to make those cars go as fast as possible.
Nice. All righty. Well, with that, we are starting to come to the end of our time with Brother Lajoie here. Thank you so much again to him for taking some time out of his day to come talk to us. But before we let him out of here, I want to do a little thing we like to call the 2-minute drill.
The 2-minute drill.
2-minute drill. This is kind of a fast-paced, rapid-fire segment, as the title implies. I'll ask you a question. You can answer with one of 2 or 3 answers. So, all right, question number 1. Kevin Harvick's failure to make the Final Four for this year's postseason is a direct result of his team's lack of competitiveness in the round of 8, not a flaw in the playoff system. True or false?
True.
Okay, fair enough. Better burger during a rain delay, Cookout or Whataburger?
Whataburger.
My man! That is the answer I was looking for on that one.
Whataburger's good, man. I can attest. Whataburger's good. Now, because I say Whataburger because when I go to Cookout, I usually just get a spicy chicken tray. So I'd be lying if I even said I got the burger at Cookout.
You go to Cookout for a milkshake, man. That's what the Cookout is for.
A banana pineapple milkshake.
There you go. I'm a fan of the peach cobbler milkshake myself.
All right. There you go.
All right, a harder racer to pass on the track, Ross Chastain or Ryan Newman?
I've raced around Ross a lot more just because him and I have, been some similar cars in terms of speed. But I raced around Ryan Newman this past weekend in Martinsville, and that rascal is tough. So I think that, Ross will get to the point where he'll concede if you get the position on him occasionally, but Ryan doesn't matter. If he's barely hanging on by an inch, he's giving it all it takes, and you got to take it when you get around Ryan Newman. So Ryan definitely takes that cake.
Yeah, Kevin Harvick had the line of the century on Newman when he just said, you get around Ryan and the track becomes as wide as his neck.
Oh, yeah, and that's the damn truth.
All right, next question. Who would win in a fight, Batman or Iron Man?
Oh, man. I think Batman would.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with the world's greatest detective. So
I don't know. He's got, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I mean, Iron Man's got all the gadgets, but it's almost like you can't beat Batman, man.
Sure, man. Well, how many incarnations of that film franchise have we had? That ought to tell you who's the more successful anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Next question, true or false? The next-gen Cup car will have a seismic impact for the better on the NASCAR team business model.
I don't think it has a choice not to. I mean, I think that everybody's dumping all the chips into that pot. I think NASCAR really understands that they need to get that business model away to make it appetizing for some newer owners to get in, as well as make a viable business model for the guys who already have in the sport.
Nice. Oh yeah, I'm actually really interested to see how that's gonna play out with the sport. It's been exciting to see new teams coming on board as it is with Jordan and Hamlin, obviously. Trackhouse is coming on board, so it's exciting times, and I'm hoping that car leads to more of that because we need more parity in NASCAR big time.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty, next question is better era for rock music, 70s classic, 80s metal, or 90s grunge?
I'm a 70s guy, little Fleetwood Mac,
my man.
little Eagles, all those. So I'm a classic rock guy in terms of what I put on the radio and on. So AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, all the above.
You just won my wife's heart with the Guns N' Roses. That is her favorite band of all time.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next question. Preferred beer choice for a summertime grill out, craft or domestic?
I mean, don't judge me, but I've been on a big craft beer kick with, local breweries or that. I'm just not a Bud Light guy. I think I don't want to say anything derogatory because I'd love to be the Anheuser-Busch guy when Kevin's done, but I'll definitely lean more towards an IPA than a Bud Light or a Mick Ultra.
Yeah, we're gonna split on that one, brother. I'm a domestic guy. I do enjoy trying craft stuff whenever I'm in different places. If I go to a town, I like to ask the local bartender what's popular around here, and I'll give it a shot. But inevitably, man, when it's summertime and it's hot as crap outside, it's tough to beat an ice cold Miller Lite off the ice.
Oh yeah.
All right, final question. True or false? Jimmy Johnson will go down as the greatest Cup Series champion of all time.
I hope so. He deserves it. For as much as he's done for the sport, off the track as well as on the track. I just think that people don't. It's easy to take for granted when you have it and you can watch him every weekend. But 5 years from now, people are going to look back to those early 2010s and be like, oh, man, that guy was special. So I know Jimmy on a personal level. That's why I think so highly of him, just because of the guy he is. But in my opinion, to do it in the toughest era of the sport, to win 7 championships, I don't think it'll ever be matched. And there was also nobody better in terms of just being a good human as old Jimmy Johnson. So I'll put a Jimmy Johnson post up this week and just all the times that we spent together. So he's definitely helped my career as well as many others. So Jimmy's a man.
Awesome. Well, brother, we greatly appreciate you coming on to the program. I know a lot of fans are anxious to know where you're going to be driving in 2021. It's not going to be the 32. Rumor around Sunday Money is that you are very close to an announcement on that. So when can fans expect to know what number they need to buy in on their T-shirts and hats for next season?
Oh yeah, it'll be out for long. Hopefully we get some cool merch built up, and it'll be a new team, and we'll have some cool merch to go along with it, some cool branding things, and just be on the lookout. Tune into Sunday Money or tune into my social media, and you'll see something here soon.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Lajoie, go find him online. If you want to learn more about him and his partners, you can do so at CoreyLajoieRacing.com. That's CoreyLajoie Racing.com. He's also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and that's him. He does not have a PR rep managing those for him. If you interact with him on social media, that's the man himself. So go check him out. Again, that's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But beyond all of that, guys, support his sponsors. If you take nothing else away from this conversation, it is that race car drivers, no matter big or small, they live and die by sponsorship revenue. So next time you're out and about, buy a Built Bar, all right? Look up Dry Lean. If you're looking to do some reno around your house, Schluter Systems has got plenty of stuff to offer you in the way of tiles and flooring and so on and so forth. Lord knows we've all heard of Adidas. You need a pair of shoes? Go support those companies and then get on social media and tell them you're buying their stuff because they support guys like Corey Lajoie.
Oh, yeah. Or Built Bars, protein bars. They're a good partner jumping on board, a little more context next year. So if you're somebody likes to work out, somebody likes to get a little extra protein throughout the day, Built Bar is your protein bar of choice.
Yeah, man. So, well, Corey Lajoie, thank you so much for coming on the program, brother. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Ian.
And now the news.
All right, thanks again to Corey Lajoie for coming on the program and spending some time chatting with us. That was indeed a treat, and one that I've been looking forward to doing for quite a long time now. So, as we said at the end of that, be sure you go find him. If you're looking for a driver to support, he is your man. Now, for those who are listening to this show for the very first time, as you probably picked up on at the intro there, we are the nexus of geekery and guy world. That means a lot of times we're talking about fast cars and racing and football and baseball and beer and barbecue. Then other times we're talking about the geek world, man. And by that I mean Star Wars and Star Trek and Marvel versus DC, Firefly, all that good stuff. And wouldn't you know it, right now Star Wars just so happens to be in the news because the long-awaited premiere of The Mandalorian Season 2 dropped last Friday night. Episode 2 may be out by the time this airs, but we have definitely had a chance to see the premiere of the new season and get into that. So without further ado, I welcome in one of my partners of crime, Mr. Dave Daniels. Scott Esther has the night off. So welcome to the party, brother. How's life treating you?
Going well. So what I'm hearing you say is we do a little bit of Bears, Beats, and Battlestar Galactica.
Bears, Beats, and Battlestar Galactica.
See, you're not an Office person. You're not a fan of The Office. So.
I was not a big Office guy. Don't throw rocks at me, Twitter. All right. No trolls. I was not a big Office guy. So no, that one shot right over my head.
Yeah, no, it's it's a good time. The great interview. Corey seems like a great guy. I get to step in a little afterwards, going through. You're definitely the NASCAR brain in all of this, so I wanted to let you have that one.
For those who know my career history, you kind of understand why that is. But no, man. All right, let's get out of business on the topic at hand here. Mandalorian Season 2. Buddy, we've been teasing this for months now. I mean, pretty much since the first teaser came out over the summer. We were waiting for them to finally get back to work after people started to filter back after if they had reached a point with the pandemic that they could do that. And finally we have it, man. So we've seen the first episode right off the top. First take, first impressions. What did you think?
Fantastic. When you look at it, it's what you were hoping. You get what you had in season 1. As of right now, I don't feel like there's a letdown when it comes to episode 1. Obviously, if you've not seen it yet, if you're still waiting off, I mean, there's some great moments. I don't think there's any secret as to kind of what they get into, and I think part of what you saw was you see Boba Fett's armor. So that's always great to get into, and when you see what's going on, old school, new school.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. I got 2 words for you. Raylan Givens. Loved it. Raylan Givens is a marshal. Again, in space. That made my day. I was a huge Justified fan. People who know me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, know that as well as anybody. But yeah, man, Timothy Olyphant makes his way into the Star Wars universe as a new character that was introduced in one of the new Star Wars canonical novels. I think it was the Aftermath series. His name is Cobb Vanth. He's a marshal of a town there on Tatooine, in charge of trying to clean up the messes, as it were. And looking every bit the Raylan Givens part with a little bit more salt in the hair than he had before, but still playing that role, man. And it fit him like a glove. He slid back into that with so much ease. As a longtime Justified fan, it was so much fun to watch. But I think you really hit on something there at the end of your comment, which was the new, the old. The way The Mandalorian blends all of that with the stories that they tell is really, I think, what makes that show such a home run. They do a great job channeling the nostalgia of the original Star Wars that we all grew up with while telling us these really great, nuanced, all-new stories set in this new sandbox that is kind of the world after Return of the Jedi. This was no different. You get the callbacks to the original trilogies with the crate dragon and all that. We'd heard about those things, but we'd never actually seen them on screen until now. The Boba Fett armor right off the top. For those of us who follow Star Wars at the news, we had read about that, but just seeing it on screen again after all these years was awesome. More detail into the Sand People, not just freaky looking baddies who look like rejects from Mad Max anymore. Like they actually have a culture and a dialect and a way that they interact as community was cool to see in action. And then lo and behold, you get the cameo at the very, very end, just before they go to credits, to really rope you into episode 2. So what were your thoughts on that? I mean, if you haven't seen the episode yet, then feel free to turn us off now for a couple of seconds, but I'm delving into a spoiler here. Was that or was that not Boba Fett out in the desert at Tatooine?
Yes, sir.
You think so?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't think it was Boba Fett. So I think it's good. What it's going to end up being is one of the clones. You still got someone going through. Either it's Boba or it's going to be another one of the clones out running through that was around something along those lines. I think, but it's definitely the actor that played
Yeah.
in the prequels.
Yeah, Tamora Morrison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the buzz online is that that's Boba Fett. I mean, it makes sense. You just rolled out his armor. He would obviously be on the hunt for that. It's teased all over the place that you can survive a Sarlacc. That is possible. And then lo and behold, you get the face of the man himself. I am with you. I'm kind of wondering if that's going to be a little bit of a red herring. We obviously know that Ahsoka Tano is going to be coming later on in the season, played by none other than Miss Rosario Dawson. And so we all know Captain Rex, which was another one of the clones, has always been a close partner of hers. Whether it was in the Clone Wars, whether it was in Star Wars Rebels, he's always been very closely tied to her. So the knowledge of knowing that she's coming down the line somewhere in this season, okay, is that by chance Captain Rex? Maybe, kind of, sort of, don't know. I mean, my money is on that was Boba Fett, but there is room there to tease you that it could be somebody else. You know,
I'm going to need to see how they got the armor out of the Sarlacc pit. I'm sorry. I still, that to me, someone can survive it. I get that, but I'm going to want to see how that happened.
Jawas are pretty resourceful little dudes, man. I mean, for all you know, the Krayt Dragon ate the Sarlacc that, had Boba Fett. I don't know. Heck, I mean, it's Star Wars, man. Anything can freaking happen, I don't know. It farted, and out came the armor. There it was, I mean, that would be awesome in Star Wars. What happened? A dragon farted, and out came a Mandalorian. I don't know. It just happened. I don't know. I got nothing. I don't know. So,
the old flatulence playing. There we go.
Yeah, that's right. This is some high-class stuff happening on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast tonight, boys and girls.
It's apparent that Scott's the one that grounds us when it comes to this stuff.
He really is, isn't he? Yeah, we missed the Scott, man. All right, starting to look forward. We teased on this just a second ago. We know Ahsoka Tano is coming. You've got to know that when you've got Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni involved in a project, there is a plan. Unlike the sequel trilogy, which had no plan, they will have a very clear map laid out for where this story is going to go. You now know that Boba Fett's armor is out there. You think that could be Boba Fett himself out to reclaim his armor, which would make a whole lot of sense. You also know that Ahsoka Tano is coming, and you also know that the Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is on the hunt to find Jedi because he needs to find, Baby Yoda's people. And so he's been quested to find the Jedi to do that. All these roads are going to converge somewhere. The question is how and when. So, Dave, you're big a fan of this show as I am, man. What do you want to see out of that? How do you want to see that transpire? If you were writing it, what are you doing?
Ooh. You know what? Honestly, man, I just want to enjoy it. I've had in season 1, I really enjoyed kind of what they did with that, and I had some thoughts on where I felt like it needed to go, or I felt like I wanted it to go, and it didn't. It went in a different direction, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So honestly, I just want to be a fanboy. I just want to appreciate it, enjoy it, not get wrapped up in all this other, hey, where are we going with this? Let's just enjoy the storytelling, because quite honestly, it's been a very long time since we've been able to do that with a Star Wars live action show.
That is a very true story right there. Absolutely. I'm a little different in that regard. I mean, being a writer, my writer's brain rarely ever turns off, and that's a blessing as much as it is a curse sometimes, I will tell you. But I think it makes it that much rewarding when you think you've got it figured out and the writers of the show that you're watching totally swerve you. Getting surprised like that is really hard to do. And you're right. They definitely did that a number of times with season 1, and I do look forward to seeing how they can do that in season 2. I do want to see this season build a bit more into the grander Jedi mythology. Like, I love the Western in space vibe that is the Mandalorian. It is the DNA of what makes this show. But man, they teased us with the Darksaber at the end of season 1. I want to see how all this ties together. I want to see how all of this pulls together within the grander narrative of who the Jedi were and could be again.
I definitely want to see more Gus Fring in this, though.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Fantastic actor as it is. I want it. Let's get this going. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, Gustavo Fring. Looking forward to seeing him come back in Better Call Saul in the spring, by the way. That's we'll get into that one on another podcast when it rolls around, but we'll stick with Star Wars for now. But yeah, I'm encouraged by what I saw, kind of putting a bow on this little topic. We couldn't not talk about The Mandalorian Season 2. For those who listen to this show, Star Wars is biggie for us. I was really happy with season 2. The one thing I will say, as cool as it was to see the fall of the Death Star from somewhere other than what's happening right around Endor in Return of the Jedi, you got to kind of branch out and see what the rest of the galaxy was looking like as they celebrated that in real time when it was happening in the flashback sequences. That was all really cool. But we're going to go ahead and carve out backstory here and just insert that into the opening box, the opening space, so that you can know exactly who this guy is, because we need to build his character so we can move forward with the story. We do that quick. Flashbacks. It was almost like, watching a Rocky movie. You know when the montage is coming. Like, you could just see it. You see the formula. That felt a little bit formulaic for me. But you know what, man? If that's the worst I've got to say about a show, I'll happily take it and roll on Big River and be happy with it. So I'm excited to see where the season's going to go from here.
Yeah, quite honestly, it is the best thing on television right now. For me, it's the best thing on television. There's nothing that really competes with it story-wise. There's nothing else that I really want to go through and just have to watch. I can't wait for this next episode.
I can get on board with that. I will tell you, I'm ready for Cobra Kai season 3. I've seen seasons 1 and 2 at least 3 times now, and I am anxiously awaiting Cobra Kai season 3. But that's going to be on Netflix, which means you get to binge it. And this one, it's old school, man. I mean, Disney Plus drops that stuff for you once a week. That means you don't get to binge it. And you're going to watch it one episode at a time, which gives us a whole week in between episodes to marinate, analyze, dissect, rip apart, all the fun stuff. That's what we do on this show. So, all right, without further ado, that's enough babbling from us. What do you say we get to questions from the folks who listen to this fine program?
Open the mailbox, sir.
We shall indeed.
You've got mail.
Okay, dude mail question number 1. Where's my dude mail file? Dude mail file, come back to me. All right, question number 1 comes to us from Rashad. Hey, fellas, in light of all the suck that is the world right now, can we not all agree that it has been damned awesome to have college football back? COVID hiccups or not, we've still had some fantastic games so far this season, and I expect this weekend slate to be no different. So let's hear it. Clemson, Notre Dame, Florida, Georgia. What do you got? Dave, you want to make a prediction on those two?
I think people are going to be a little more weary of Clemson without Trevor Lawrence there, but I mean they just reload. That kid behind him may not be as good.
He's a freaking 5-star, man.
He's going to get the chance to show us what Clemson's going to look like for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
that's going to be Clemson. Notre Dame just is Notre Dame. They just They're still chasing invisible girlfriends up there in South Bend. So.
Oh man, you're never gonna let that one go, are you?
No sir, no sir. Man, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, no problem. Hey, is that in South? I should know this. Is that in South Bend or is that in Greenville?
You know what? I honestly don't know.
I want to say it's in South Bend.
While we go on to the next one, I will use the Google machine to figure that out.
That's a biggie. I think if you're going to South Bend, it's going to be on prime time. Weather's going to be cold. True freshman quarterback. I don't know, man. I mean, this could be where Clemson finally stumbles. I mean, if you're looking for a recipe to see that happen, a path to that happening, I don't know that you can beat this formula. Notre Dame is a solid team across the board. They are exceptional on the line of scrimmage, offensively and defensively. And as we at Florida State know, that is where football games are won and lost. So, you're going to roll in there under the lights, prime time, nation watching, with a true freshman quarterback making his second ever start. I mean, I'm not a huge. I don't know that Notre Dame is supremely elite. Not to the level of an Alabama or obviously a Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. But without Trevor Lawrence, I do believe Clemson is mortal under certain circumstances, and I think these could be those circumstances.
I think they had their moment last week. I think they got through that last week. He got his jitters out, and it was against a crap team. But he got the opportunity to get that out and go through. I think they've had their conversation with him, and it's just going to be Clemson rolling. I honestly think Clemson wins that game by more than 2 touchdowns.
I was just about to say, so per Rashad's request, you're taking Clemson over that one. I'm actually going to keep an eye on Notre Dame. I don't know, man. I just got a bad feeling about this one for Clemson. I wouldn't if Lawrence was in there, but I don't know. I'm actually going to go with the Irish on this. All right, world's largest cocktail party, Florida, Georgia. We know this one well down in our neck of the woods. Looks like Georgia is favored. I believe the line is 4.5 right now. Lots of stuff on the line. Both of these teams got a L on their resume as it is, so you pretty well got to know if you have any intention of challenging for the Southeastern Conference crown right now, you got to win this game. Florida, Georgia. Dave, who you taking in this one?
I'm taking Georgia.
Really?
Yeah, I think Georgia is going to go through. They've got the running game going, which Florida's had some issues with all season. And I think that we're going to end up in a spot where Florida just had their issues with everything that happened with the big fight and everything happened at this last game. I just, gut feeling, I just think it's going to be Georgia on this one.
Okay. I'm actually, as much as it pains me to say this, I'm going to go with the Gates on this. I don't like Dan Mullen. I think he's kind of a tool, honestly. I don't care if he dresses up in Darth Vader costumes or not. I just still think he's a goober. I mean, like, that's the best way I know to describe that guy. He's just a weird, dorky goober of a dude. I also think he's arrogant as all get out, but you can be arrogant, frankly, when you've had as much success as a coach as he has. He's a damn fine coach, and I hate saying that about my rival, but it is the honest truth. I think the minute Florida falters, he's going to have a heck of a time recruiting. But as long as they're reeling in 10-win seasons, he's going to be just fine in Gainesville. And once he has talent, he knows what to do with it. No doubt about it. I think he's also got a quarterback that he can trust and Trask. I don't know, man. I don't honestly believe in Kirby. 2 years ago, we had Mark Schlabach on the program to do our college football preview with us, and I put that question to him. At what point does Bulldog Nation start to get a little bit jittery about Kirby the way that they did with Mark Richt? Where you were consistently winning games, you were competitive every year, but every year you just found a way to come up short, and you were never quite there at the top tier of the SEC. You always faltered. He kind of, rolled his eyes at me, I think, a bit on that. But, you fast forward 18 months, and I can't help but think Bulldog Nation's starting to get a little bit nervous about Kirby. It's not to say they're ready to pull the plug on him. I certainly don't think they would after a coronavirus season. But he has not proven yet that he can win big games that really matter. And Georgia has to have this if they have any chance of challenging for a crown. So, sadly, I like the Dogs because my sister went to master school there. I've been to Athens. It's a great freaking town, great campus. But I just don't think this is Georgia's year. I'm gonna take the Gates on that. So, all right, moving on to our next question. It comes to us from Kelly. Like many folks of my generation, I was saddened to learn this week of the passing of Sean Connery. Easy question for you guys. Give me your favorite Connery flicks, Bond or otherwise. We talked about with Nick Maley on this show. Highlander was a flick that I grew up with. He will always be remembered as Ramirez for me. Loved it. I actually just went back and rewatched the original Highlander with my stepkid a couple of weeks ago. I think he got into it, but I still thought it was awesome. Sean Connery is freaking fantastic as Connor McLeod's mentor, really, in that film. Can't go wrong with the oldies like Goldfinger. He made Bond. Like, he is the template by which all Bond actors are judged, henceforth forevermore, and rightfully so. So can't go wrong with that. As cheesy as it freaking was, it was still awesome to see him in The Rock. It was a total Michael Bay popcorn fest that made no sense, but he nailed it, and he was a blast to watch. He delivered great comedy, and it was a great action flick. So kind of spanning the eras there, from classic Connery to 80s Connery to the 90s Connery with The Rock. Those are the three that come to mind for me that I will always love. And then, of course, they did a little movie called The Untouchables that he won an Oscar for that you can kind of never go wrong with in the world of mob flicks. So, Dave, how about you, man? Favorite memories of the man, Connery?
I now understand why you wanted to go first, because you decided to pick every Connery movie that was made.
Hey, man, when you're first chair and you have to handle all the production duties, you get right of refusal sometimes. So I
had a great line. You'd gone through everything. I thought, here we go. We're coming down to it. He hadn't said the movie yet at the very end. Then we had a little movie called The Untouchables. What are you prepared to do about it?
There you go.
That's it for me. I mean, you look at Bond, you look at some of the other stuff that he was in. They're all fantastic movies. And I think it was probably more of a timing thing for me when it came to The Untouchables and the history portion of it, which, I'm sure that movie's not historically accurate as it probably could be. But The Untouchables is just a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
It's every bit of it, and Connery rode that thing, man. That's it. Untouchables is by far my favorite movie he's done.
Yeah, guys, for our younger listeners, man, if you've never watched a movie from the late 1980s called The Untouchables, do yourselves a favor, friends, and go out and find where that's streaming this weekend. Even if you got to pay $5-6 for it, please just do yourself a favor and watch it. As mob films go, I mean, you just can't beat it. Sean Connery, Kevin Costner, Garcia.
Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia, thank you. Very young Andy Garcia. Tons
Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro. Tons of that guy actors that you've seen in tons of other stuff before and since. Just, God, what an amazing film. Untouchables. Yep, classic Connery at its finest. All right, next question comes from Joe. I'm with you guys on the Antonio Brown signing. That said, as a 48-year-old native of Clearwater, I can't not root for the Bucs. Could it be, now that Brady and company seem to be catching their stride, that they are the favorites in the NFC? You know what, Dave? I'm going to give you lead on that, sir. Go right ahead with your answer.
Oh, okay. So when the Bucks come around, that's how it works, huh? Well, the buck stops here. No. Yes and no. I mean, obviously they're starting to find themselves. They're doing better. I'm interested to see how Antonio Brown gets in that locker room. We touched on this last podcast when it comes to what he can do to a locker room. Hopefully, for them anyway. Hopefully they can keep that from happening. But there's other teams in the NFC that have been around for a while, that have been doing this for a little while. I mean, you look at the Seahawks. They're a good team. They have been. They're perennially good. And of course, it doesn't hurt that they've got two University of Miami running backs running for them right now that have, one of them showed out this week, DJ Dallas. Of course, the NFC East, man, there's nothing that compares to the NFC East and the suckage that is going on in that division right now. So
you say that with such hatred and vitriol, sir.
Oh, the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, they're getting what come to them, man. Freaking
Oh, yeah.
Karma's biting them in the butt with a vengeance this year, man.
I tell you that I think the up-and-coming team right now that you're going to keep an eye on, and they'll make some noise this year, and I think they'll continue to get better, is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see what happens with them this weekend. My Dolphins' defense is fantastic, as we proved against the Rams. They had a plan against the Rams. They rode it till the wheels fell off, and they almost did at the end of that game. But, the Dolphins' defense is fantastic. If the offense can catch up with that, with Tua and everything, I think they'll go. But the Arizona is going to be another team that does well, and they're moving up. The Bears will do nothing. They're full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So
poor old Nick Foles, man. He's an easy guy to root for, no doubt about it. Anybody who knows his story and has ever seen him in an interview, he is a supremely classy dude. Totally, from a character standpoint, that guy that you would love to have be in the face of your franchise. Man, unless he's playing in Philadelphia, he's just butt sorry. I don't know how to say it other than that. He was butt sorry with the Rams. He was butt sorry with the Jaguars. And now he's butt sorry with the Bears. So I hate it. I mean, I really, really do. But I'm glad he got that Super Bowl. He can always move back to Philadelphia and open a cheesesteak shop, and he'll be set for life because they love him in that town. But anywhere else, man, he's just not doing it. On the NFC, yeah, I mean, hey, listen, it's hard to argue. Lord knows the Bucs have not been healthy. So once they start getting some people back in stride, back healthy, I mean, the sky's the limit for what they can be. I certainly think that the Antonio Brown signing tells you one thing unequivocally, and that is that they are here to win a Super Bowl this year. It is Super Bowl or bust. You don't make a signing like that and take that kind of risk with that kind of baggage without just saying we're putting it all out on the line. It's here and now or bust. So, are they primed to do that? I would certainly think they have the pieces in place. You've got Brady, you've got Gronk, you've got a defense that's playing, way over the top. You lose Vita Vea, that certainly hurts you, but you still rally with guys like JPP and so on and so forth. Dave also makes a couple of great points, man. I mean, all of the teams that he named as being potential suitors for that NFC crown are all the teams with elite quarterbacks. And by that, I mean guys like Russell Wilson, who you can never, ever bet against. For my money, he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. I love that guy to see with NC State. There's a guy out there named Aaron Rodgers, who, when surrounded by healthy personnel, can sling it with the best of them. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't know yet that I believe in Kyler Murray. We'll see. He's still a little green for me. He's certainly making some throws that would make me question the thought I had a couple of years ago, which was that he was going to be an outright bust. Don't know that that's the case. I don't know that it's not, but I don't know that it is either. Jury's still kind of out on him and what the Cardinals can be for me. But definitely the Seahawks, definitely with the Packers. I know some people want to throw the Saints in that argument, and while I would love nothing more than to do that because I got a lot of respect for Drew Brees and the stuff that he's done, my man's showing every ounce of 40 years right now. You can see it in his throws. You can see it in his body language on the field. He just doesn't quite seem to be the Drew Brees of old, and that's a bummer. But, it is what it is. So, all right. So I think that pretty well covers that. Next question. Where is my next question? Next question comes to us from Alan. If my new gas bill is any indication, fall has certainly arrived and in full force. You guys have talked a lot on your show about your favorites when it comes to summertime beers, but what happens when the leaves and the temperatures drop? What's on tap then? Dave, fall beers, man, cold weather beers. What's your taste for something like that? What's your flavor?
So typically, Oktoberfest from Sam Adams is something that I get into. That for me is the official start of the beer fall season. It's fantastic. It's just one of those things that I think I drink so much of it once it finally comes around that I get to the end of it. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this for another 9 months or so. There's a local beer that's here in Tallahassee. It's by Deep, which is a local brewery. And it is a blonde coffee ale, and I cannot remember what they call it right now, but it is fantastic. It's a fall beer for them. I discovered it a couple years ago, and they only tap it around this time of year, and it is really good. If you enjoy that type of it, I'm not an IPA person, but if you enjoy coffee beer, it is a blonde coffee ale, and it is fantastic.
All righty. Well, darker beers, I don't mind them on occasion, particularly when the weather is cold. Listen, tough to go wrong with a Guinness. When in doubt, just grab a Guinness. I do also love the Oktoberfests when it's on draft. I've found the Oktoberfest that you buy off the shelf to be, it's okay. It's a good quality Sam Adams beer, but there's something special about that when it's coming off of a good, clean tap in a bar room in a frozen mug. That's when Oktoberfest is at its best. A buddy of mine who was a bartender down in Tallahassee got me turned on to a vanilla porter out of a brewery called Breckenridge out in Colorado. Author buddy of mine, Kevin Eikenberry, is a big fan of that group. They do a vanilla porter that is absolutely to die for. When I sampled it, it was coming off of a nitrous tap, and it had every bit the quality, weight, and heft that you would expect to get out of a porter, but had a nice vanilla finish. And it wasn't so much that it tasted like you were drinking a milkshake. I hate beers like that. It was just a nice accent to that very familiar, bold texture and weight that comes with a porter. So great blend. Again, I'm very fond of good quality beers when they're coming off of a tap. When I'm going to get something out of a bottle, it's like I said with Corey earlier on in the interview, man, just give me a Miller Lite and let's call it a day. And that's still pretty much my go-to beer. But you asked about fall beers, and so that's pretty well my vote on that. So, okay, final question comes to us from Daryl. Ian, what the hell happened to your guy, man? I thought Harvick was a mortal lock for the Final Four. Given what happened to him at Martinsville this past Sunday, what say you on the NASCAR format? Are you still a fan of it, as you have said in the past, or do you think it's time to revisit the issue of consistency? No, this has been a big talking point all week in racing circles. Listen, it's a bummer. The guy dominated the field for a year. Literally, almost a year, February to November. The guy won 9 times. Should have won earlier on in Kansas in the round of 8. But this downforce package that they run gave him no ability to pass, which is a bummer. That said, listen, the guy had 2 back-to-back races that were absolutely god-awful, coupled with the fact that 2 racers who were way down in the points raced completely over their heads and stole transition spots into the Final Four. That's a recipe for disaster in any formula. And, Dave and I talked about this off air with regard to the playoff tweaking. I don't think NASCAR needs to tweak its playoff system. The one thing I do think you can make a very good case for is the fact that your regular season champion deserves a first round bye. And I'm not talking about a one race bye. I mean a straight up pass to the round of 12. I think that's fair. You look at any major sport, your regular season champs get a first-round bye. I think NASCAR should be no different. I have heard people or comments from Rick Mast and others online that maybe you should get a pass to the Final Four. That's a bridge too far for me. Listen, I love Kevin Harvick. I think you're an idiot if you don't believe he's one of the top 4 racers in NASCAR this year. But, listen, man, I've often compared the NASCAR playoff format to the NCAA tournament. And frankly, I wish people would stop comparing it to the NFL or hockey or one of the other stick and ball sports, because it's really not anything like that when you get right down to it. It is, however, very similar to the NCAA tournament, which is to say that you can have an average to middling regular season and do just enough to limp into the playoffs and then catch fire and make a run for a championship. That is the drama that Brian France and NASCAR and their television partners wanted. And that's what any sport wants. That's what the television partners for any sport wants for a postseason. We as a society, particularly as sports fans, live off of stories. We want drama. We want the Game 7 moments. We want the Cinderella stories. You had that earlier on in the playoffs with Austin Dillon. So you got that in spades. Sunday was freaking riveting from Martinsville. If you're Kevin Harvick, you can't show up and have that much of a turd of a car. And I don't know how they went wrong or how it happened, but they just weren't able to reel it in. The gods did not smile on them, and now they're not going to run for a championship. Reminds me an awful lot of 2015 when the University of Kentucky went undefeated through the regular season and the SEC Conference Championship, won the title, cruised into the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed, ran the table, and then lost. Who remembers that undefeated season now? So, it really kind of comes down to what is it that you want your champion to be? What do you want your championship to be? Do you want it to be the complete body of work that is a full season, rewards success from top to bottom, from beginning to end of your calendar sports year or your season? Or do you want it to be that team that had the magic at the right time and crescendoed at the end of the year? I think that's a debate that will rage on to the end of time among all sports fans in just about every sport on the face of the planet. As for NASCAR, and to the question, I think their playoff format is just fine. Maybe it needs a little bit of tweaking, but I think it's exciting. As a fan, I really enjoy it, even though my guy got the cut this past weekend. So, Dave, what say you on this, man? I know you're not a terribly big NASCAR fan, but you are a sports fan. And you do have experience. We've debated these issues over beers before, whether it was how long a Major League Baseball season should be, whether they should expand the playoffs in college football, the NFL. What do you want your champion to be?
I'm okay with what they've got going on over there. We did talk about this a little bit off the air, kind of coming into all this. It's the same thing as you talked about Kentucky. We talked a little bit about the Patriots. The Patriots going 17-0 and what happened to them in that Super Bowl. It is what it is. You take risks as a championship team or as a team vying for a championship, and it just looks like Harvick, his team, took some risks with the vehicle, with the car, that they just either they shouldn't have, or they didn't know their driver well enough, or something to make that happen. So as a championship goes, you can be the best team on the field, and year in and year out doesn't mean you're gonna win those championships. So you got to create the drama, because that's what your sponsors want. That's what your fans want. I know that prior to doing this, NASCAR would go into Homestead, and typically every year there was somebody that was so far ahead that it didn't matter who won that race.
Oh yeah, under the old point system, Harvick clinched a week ago, and you've still got 2-3 races left to go in the season. Yeah.
So yeah, but we're at that point now when it comes to this. So it is what it is. You have to be a championship team, you have to be able to either hit a run at the end of it and just ball out and go through, or you have to be consistent every week all the way through, because if you falter, it sucks. And unfortunately for guys that drive cars like that, you don't know what is going on in that car that you can't see. You can put it together, you can have engineers do all of that, but if there's a couple of bolts that came bad out of a batch and you couldn't see it on the inside of the bolt because of what was going through, and it throws your engine off, or it drops your rear end out of it, or something happens, that's the break sometimes.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't take my hat off to Chase Elliott and the 9 team. And for that matter, Joey Logano and the 22 a couple of weeks prior at Kansas. Those guys went. They put it all on the line, and Chase Elliott had the drive of his freaking life on Sunday. It was incredible to watch him charge. It was incredible to watch that team. You know, the tire man on pit road who jumped the gun before he was supposed to and had the wherewithal to realize, crap, I've got to get back or I'm going to get my team penalized. And in the moment, I mean, in a split second, dude had the wherewithal to jump back, reset himself, and avert what would have ended their day. That's a championship move right there. And you couple that with the drive that Chase put on, and, I mean, listen, if you're a fan of the 9, you got everything to be proud of right now. And they are rolling heading into Phoenix next weekend. So gonna be interesting. But again, the what should a championship be debate, man, that's as old as time in the world of freaking sports. But that's going to bring us down to the wire. Let's get ready to close this puppy out with a little bit of white flag. Here we go.
White flag.
White flag is that segment when we tell listeners what's on our radar coming up here in the next few weeks. Can be sports stuff, matchups, things we're looking forward to on the field, on the racetrack. Could be television shows that are getting ready to come out or movies that we're ready to watch that are going to drop in the next couple of weeks. Books we're going to read. Pretty much whatever, man. So, Dave, what's on your radar coming up in the next couple of weeks?
I'm excited to see what my Hurricanes are going to do in the next couple of weeks when it comes to they have an opportunity. You know, they underperformed a little bit the last game they had. They've had a week off. Manny's never really done well after a bye for some reason. But they have the opportunity to show whether they're going to be a mediocre team and they're going to walk out of here with 3-4 losses, or are they going to be that team that lost to an elite team, continue to make themselves better throughout the season and go through. NC State coming up this week. They're a record-wise, they're a decent team. They're not bad. It's a type of team that we would have struggled against in the past. Let's see what happens. Let's see how we respond to this and go through. The other thing that I'm really looking forward to, you talked about it last week. You and I are getting together for the first time in a little while to do some drinks. Let's make this happen up in North Carolina, sir.
Gonna be a good time, man. Looking forward to having you guys up here next weekend. Yeah, so naturally I'm looking forward to the NASCAR finale at Phoenix. We've got, 4 heavy hitters that are ready to challenge for a championship, man. You got Brad Keselowski, you got Denny Hamlin, you got Joey Logano, and now you got Chase Elliott in the fray. And all of them hotter than firecrackers, it seems, except for maybe Hamlin, who's just kind of warm. But, I mean, he can get hot at any time. So, going to be interesting to see how all of that plays out. As far as my Seminoles go, I mean, they are what they are this season. They're a steaming pile of crap. To borrow a line from Major Payne, by the end of the season, I just hope I'm able to look at them and say, you're still turds. You just don't have nuts in you anymore. That's pretty well where I'm at with Florida State right now.
God, we definitely miss Scott.
Oh yeah, well just look like you actually have some semblance of progress being made in that program by the end of the year. It's like I told Scott last episode and off the air, that team is not going to get any better with that roster. There are too many bad eggs on that squad that just need to leave. And you're going to get better by attrition. I honestly believe that in Tallahassee. The question is, are you going to lose so many games so badly that recruits just won't come to Tallahassee anymore? Because, I mean, that is a very big possibility. If you continue to get blown the hell out anytime you play somebody with a pulse. Listen, if I'm a 4-star recruit sitting down there in Miami or Tampa area, why would I want to come to Tallahassee when I can go to Gainesville? Or when I can go to Greenville? Or I can go to Tuscaloosa or Athens, wherever. So, I hope Florida State can show some signs of life, signs of progress, signs of moving in the right direction by the end of the year. Regardless of what their record is, show me that. And I'm happy with that. Lord knows we never saw that in the Taggart era. They still were every bit as butt sorry by the end of the year as they were when they started. So, yeah.
Well, the one season that he was there, the one full season he was there.
Dude, they were every bit as bad in Game 19 as they were in the opener against Virginia Tech to kick off his regime. They were going nowhere. All right? Yeah, they were going nowhere. And, yeah. So, anyway, nobody wants to hear me ramble on about a butt-sorry Florida State team. They are what they are, and that's why we talk about beer a lot on this show, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay, without that, I think we're going to get ready to bring this puppy to a close. Thank you again to Corey Lajoie for coming on the show and talking a little bit of racing and racing history with us. It is always a pleasure to have a gentleman like that on this program. He is, of course, welcome back anytime. Thank you to my good friend Dave Daniels for joining me for another hour or so of madness. And thank you big time to our listeners who go out of their way to support this show. Whether it's reviews, social media, you name it, we always appreciate that. And we also appreciate hearing from you guys. So if you've got a question for our Dude Mail segment, give us a call, shoot us an email, shoot us a tweet, whatever it may be. We're online at dudesinhyperspace.com, at the Hyperdudes on Twitter, and then you can join us in the Facebook group. And if you do like us, please leave those reviews on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. They make us happy and they bump us up through the ratings. So on behalf of myself, Brother Daniels, and Brother Esther, we will see you next time on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. See ya.
Bye-bye.